Well, hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Strike Me Pink, the short, sharp, 20-minute South Australian sports podcast named, of course, in honour of the great Ken KG Cunningham and his famous catch cry. We are big on local passion, but we are short on time. So let's get into it. I'm Ben Hook and I am with the state's number one sports presenter, Tom Wren. Tommy, g'day.
G'day, Hooky. Great to be on board again. Another huge week in sport. I mean, it's been so exciting, the World Cup, hasn't it? There's local footy, World Cups, golf happening, the Open Championship next week. We've got more women's majors this week. It just feels like a bit of a feast at the moment, which is great.
Yeah, geez, you're spot on, mate. You never miss a beat. Evian Championship starts tonight. Royal Birkdale for the Open Championship next week. Of course, the famous Jordan Spieth victory from all over the shop last year. Played an approach from somewhere in the practice fairway or something like that. It was. We'll deal with all of that next week, mate. We've got plenty to talk about this week, of course. Hey, before we get into it, we are both ambassadors for the Adelaide Footy League, which I was reminded of. I haven't made a huge contribution to the Amateur League this week, and I'm sure you're doing a heck of a lot more. I was in at the office doing a little bit for them. But I tell you what, mate, you are not just an ambassador for the league. You're an ambassador for basically every club. You got more clubs than a pack of cards, mate. I see you were doing a job for St. Ignatius Old Collegians. You've done St. Peter's Old Collegians. You got Scotch College on the books shortly too. You are the king of the lunch cashy, mate.
Yeah, and a little bit with Port Districts as well. And
yes,
and then Tentra Gully's sort of my old horn. That's where I'm from. So do a little bit with them as well. Oh, look, they're great. And as you know, Hooky, it's so hard to run local footy clubs, let alone sample, which is really difficult. So they rely a lot on, volunteers, etc. And it's just great, way of connecting community and all of that kind of stuff. So love the local footy. I know how passionate they are, and you're really passionate about it too. You're a great champion of local sporting stars. So it's good to see it up and going and running, and it's a really competitive league. Like it's bloody hard to win, so I love it.
Yeah, no, look, I can't say that my snout's occasionally not in the trough as well. I'm off to Freeling tomorrow, mate, with Mark Rashido and Dean Brogan. Now, you and I get around at the Unley Jets a couple of times a year, so plenty to keep us busy. But always great to be involved with the Adelaide Footy League. Such a proud competition. And I've got to be honest, Tom, and I don't want to get too deep into the tall weeds here, but has really led the way nationally with, I guess, coming down on violence in local footy, have been very, very strong. And if you look at their tribunal record now, it is quite incredible. They have cleaned the game up right throughout their league and been a real leader nationwide. So it's something to really hang their hat on for John Kernahan and the crew, I reckon.
Yeah, John Kernahan's been great. I mean, they've taken a hardline stance at times, and I'm sure it's, probably alienated him personally with a few clubs. It's difficult to do that when you have to work with them day in, day out. But I think he's sort of set the bar now, hasn't he, in terms of what's acceptable both on and off the field. And he's had to make hard decisions. He's been there a while, but I've really liked working with him over the years. I work at Channel 9 as well.
Yep.
And we've worked closely with the league, and he's always been fantastic and really forthright, which I love. And I think clubs know where they stand now when, issues like tribunals and other things come up. So that's a positive, I think, for him and for the league.
It's Thursday afternoon. I can see you are in the National 9 or the 9 News newsroom. There's plenty happening behind you, mate. So you've got plenty to deal with over the course of the afternoon. Let's get straight into it. The World Cup, a little bit of a short breather today because we have finished the round of 16. The quarterfinals start tomorrow morning, of course. What have you made of the tournament so far?
Look, I've loved it. The on-field action, we'll get to the politics shortly, I'm sure, but I've loved the colour, the excitement, the fan engagement, the stories like the Tartan Army, which we've discussed, the Scottish fans, the Norwegian fans with their rowing post-match. Yes. All of that has been breathtaking. And what I've also really liked, and I think it's been a positive for the tournament, is the stars have come to play. Erling Haaland, Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappe, Harry Kane. They've been scoring and scoring big, 20-plus goals between them. In fact, almost 30. It's been unbelievable, the action on the pitch. Disappointing finish for the Socceroos, Hooky, but maybe that's where we are. But I would have liked to have seen us get past Egypt. That said, the match between Egypt and Argentina, which followed, probably one of the matches of the tournament.
And yeah, there you go. I mean, I don't know if we had the capability to get past Argentina, but so to run Egypt as far as we did, maybe that's a little bit of a feather in our cap. I was having a think about this, Tom. I mean, I think it's probably a bit of a triumph for the Socceroos to get out of that group and make the last 32. I think that's a decent achievement. You think with so much male talent that goes to AFL, that goes to NRL, that goes to rugby union. In essence, we're a country of 5 million people, and you measure us against nations of 5 million people that are very, very keen on their football. Well, Croatia bounced out in the round of 32, Paraguay bounced out in the round of 16, Austria bounced out in the round of 32, Uruguay didn't get out of their group, and then there's Serbia, Slovakia, and Denmark, all similar-sized countries around that 5 million, all very, very keen on their football, who didn't even make the finals. And then Norway is probably the only asterisk who'll play England in a couple of mornings' time. Yes, they've been led by Erling Haaland, who you referenced, who might be one of the top 3 players in the world. So I think if you measure all of that up, Australia has probably done pretty well. Yes, we'd like them to punch above their weight, but that's about par for Australia, and we shouldn't be too disappointed, I think.
Yeah, and that was a tricky group. I think on rankings alone, average rankings in the group, I think we have the second hardest group, maybe even the hardest group of all of the 12 groups that were there to start the tournament. So that was a real triumph. Turkey, that result was brilliant. They played so well. I guess half glass empty is after that we didn't score a goal in open play. We did get one in the match against Egypt, but it was an own goal. So there's that. We still need a few more attacking options. I think the tactics of Tony Popovic, look, I like the fact that he backs himself in, but had he left Patrick Beach on for the penalty shootout, which was controversial, I don't think anyone would have said anything. They would have said, Patrick Beach made arguably the same the tournament, let alone for the Socceroos in the 90th minute against Egypt. Leave the hot man informed. But by doing what he did, you leave yourself open to scrutiny. And, you only have to listen to some of the commentary and you go, gee, bringing in a cold keeper, I know it's worked in the past for the Socceroos, but that's a massive call. Didn't work. So you have to come under some kind of fire for that. I think now, Hooky, obviously attention turns to the Asian Cup. There won't be as much fanfare on that tournament as there is the World Cup. There'll still be significant, but I think a pass mark has to be at least a semi-final, probably even a final. I think we're getting to the stage we're learning more about this team. We know they have deficiencies compared to the very, very best, like France, Argentina, etc. But we have to start expecting to perform when we're on the big stage. And I think if we're going to do that, semi-final, probably a final, has to be the benchmark for this Asian Cup.
Biggest story off the field was the United States President, Donald Trump, just making a simple phone call to the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, and just saying, hey, that red card you handed out to one of our players, how about you withdraw that? Because I think it would be better for the United States and better for the tournament, of course. Infantino said, yeah, fine, no worries at all. What did you make of that?
Yeah, and look, part of me goes, you know what, now that I've reflected, you don't really have that much surprise that Donald Trump makes that phone call. That's the way he operates. And he knows that it's going to curry favour with the voters in America because their best player is going to be playing. But you've got to shake your head at FIFA and say, Hooky, we've always had our, scepticism that they're sort of corrupt behind the curtain. But now it's like they're not even trying to hide it, are they? Isn't it? Yeah, it's just open corruption. We don't even care that everyone can see it. I mean, it's just, you call it for what it is. It is blatant open corruption. I thought it was a horrible look. And now the issue you get with that is subsequent games like Egypt and Argentina, everyone says corruption, that's corrupt. Now, it might not be, but of course everyone thinks that now because they've seen what's happened with the USA and the best player having an automatic suspension overturned because Donald Trump makes a phone call.
It does fit in with the narrative of FIFA, though, doesn't it? I mean, if you are not bending the rules, you're not really trying when it comes to the way this sport is governed. You admit nothing, you fake everything. And if you look at all the greatest moments in the history of the World Cup, they're all sort of bathed in some sort of fabrication or bluster. I mean, the number one greatest moment in the history of the World Cup is the hand of God.
Yeah.
That goal by Diego Maradona is regarded as the greatest goal of all time, and it was a blatant piece of cheating. There's wonderful stories throughout history. Argentina needed to win 4-0 to get past Brazil in 1978, and they beat Peru 6-0, and it turned out afterwards that the Argentinian dictator, Jorge Videla, had visited the Peruvian dressing room before play. There was a contrived result between West Germany and Austria in 82 that changed the rules as well. So I actually sort of think the US actually getting in and amongst the real dirty stuff of all of this, maybe it's a sign they're starting to take this sport seriously. That remains to be seen, but we've got some amazing games coming up. Of course, the biggest news back home, Tommy, was the Adelaide Thunderbirds going from a champion team to an absolute dynasty, their third title in 4 years. I'm sure you watched it probably on replay on Saturday night. I suspect you were doing some footy commentary on Saturday evening, but what an impressive performance. Absolutely dominant to win by 21 goals. Absolutely blew the Vixens away on their home court. It's easy to, or hard to.
And I defer to you a little bit on this, Hooky. You watched the netball really closely, and I watched it. I actually didn't call that night game for the footy, so I was able to watch it like you were. I think that second quarter of netball they played, they were 12-11 down at quarter time. I've caught a bit of netball. You've watched a lot, Hooky. You know the sport really well as anyone. I don't know about you, but for me, that's the best quarter of netball I think I've ever seen. And it wasn't because the Vixens, they smashed them. It wasn't because the Vixens were poor. If they played most other sides, the intensity they were playing at was pretty good. The T-Birds were they're on another level. That was frightening. Shamira Sterling-Humphrey, probably the best player I've seen live and in that game. And it's no surprise to me, Hooky, that they've won 3 out of 4 seasons with premierships, and the one season they didn't, she was off on maternity leave. Kate Heffernan, star in the midcourt. And I mean, Lauren Frew was actually copping a bit of criticism for looking a bit edgy early. I thought she was crucial. The way she works, Hooky, and opens up the court. Look, I could go on about them all, and I'm wary of time, but that was breathtaking. I loved it.
I've got this up there with the 1963 South Australian team defeating Victoria. Lightning won 4 titles in 5 years in the early 90s. The Crows back-to-back flags, 97, 98, and the Thunderbirds, I think, sit alongside that, in particular when you consider where they've come from, Tom, in the last 10 years. So they won the premiership in 2015, and the wheels sort of fell off the club, and there was a run of 27 straight games that they lost. And all of our best players didn't want to play for us. Maddie Proud, Sarah Clow, Maddie Turn, all left the Thunderbirds between 2016 and 2017 and went and played for the New South Wales Swifts. We were a basket case 2017 and 2018. In 2019, 2020, 21 and 22, now there's the COVID year in there, we finished 7th 4 years straight. So there was some improvement there, but it wasn't really showing up on the ladder. We weren't really ratcheting up the wins. And so to win 3 of the next 4 years, and as you identified, only a pregnancy to Shamira Sterling-Humphrey, probably the difference between 4 from 4. It is one of the great South Australian sporting teams in history, and probably on the verge of being the greatest, in particular when you stack it up against the fact that this is a very, very strong competition internationally. Talk about internationally, and I don't want to throw too much shade on Bianca Chatfield, but she did open up the question of whether there are too many internationals coming into this competition. Look, she's a Melbourne Vixens past player, so there was a bit of a whiff of sour grapes about the line she was dropping. But what did you make of the concept that maybe 4 internationals in one team is too many?
Look, I understand it. You know, we've seen that I think the IPL have rules around that, don't they, Hooky, in terms of how many cricketers can play?
Only 3 internationals on the field at any one time. You can have more in your squad, but only 3 can play. Yeah.
So that's an interesting side note, footnote. Well, winners are grinners. The rest can please themselves. We've heard that a million times. Bianca Chatfield's got great cred. She's played the sport. She's, been at the elite level. So I take it on board. And it's a fascinating time for netball as well, Hooky, because they're gone through this players' bargaining agreement, and basically they're going to have to renegotiate all the contracts anyway.
No one is contracted right now. Yeah.
Correct. So it's got to be a really big thing for the T-Birds to get this side to stay together anyway. That said, you would think players don't want to move if they're settled and the money's not at the gigantic level. But say a sport like AFL is, where I'm happy to move because I'm going to be getting $800,000 a year. The money's not at that level in netball. So I've got a job, I've got things settled down here for the sake of 20, 30 grand. Might be more. If it's 100 grand, yeah, sure. So netball's in a really intriguing spot for me right now. It's going to be one thing for the T-Birds to keep their squad together. To Bianca's point, I've always sort of thought if you're good enough to play in the league and it's an international, it's a bit like the South Australian cricket team. They've got Matty Jilks in Hooky, which you would know.
Yes.
If they're good enough to get there, I prefer local players, but good luck to the internationals. If they're the best players and you can get them, credit to you. Well played.
You don't want to reduce your competition down to
exactly
a glorified Sheffield Shield. So you don't want it just to be running as a bit of a development league for your national team. I think we have established Super Netball as the best competition in the world, and continuing to build on that, I think, should be overarching. What Bianca Chatfield's point is that we don't want to make all of the rest of the nation strong at our own expense. I think running, the NBA, for example, Joel Embiid, and Tato Kuampo, Nikola Jokic, all of these guys have been the NBA's best player. None of them are American, and I don't think the NBA is going to start to try and cut back on the amount of internationals that'll play in the NBA. So I hope that Super Netball sticks to its guns and continues to develop as being the best competition in the world.
And just quickly as a final point, look at the Melbourne Cup. You know, if we had just Australian horses, which has long been a debate, you're not getting the best horses. Like, bring your best over. And if you win it, good luck. And if not, we're better than you. Competition, Hooky, drives everything. Keep it going.
I did want to touch on the women's cricket. We might just touch on that at the end, but just give us your very quick thought. The Adelaide Football Club playing the Gold Coast at home on Saturday night. Massive game for both sides. Adelaide wins, they stay in touch with the top 4. Gold Coast, all of a sudden, need to win to stay in touch with the top 10, which you wouldn't have thought conceivable 8 weeks ago.
They look like world beaters at the start of the season. They beat Geelong by 10 goals in round 0, I think it was, and they were premiership favourites, Hooky, or at least on equal betting. Their season has fallen apart. It goes to the theory, I'm sure a lot of people listening and watching would say, no side ever works on the Gold Coast, and maybe it doesn't, you know, because you lose a game and scrutiny. Now, I'm not saying the Fourth Estate is responsible for anything, but they wake up and everyone goes, oh, damn, the Suns lost last night. Oh, let's go to the beach and have a nice meal. No one cares. Yeah, and that's the problem. Like 6 in a row they've lost. They're the most disappointing side this season. They're maybe the most disappointing side in the country of any code. They should be in the top 4 and they are nowhere. I don't know what's happened, a few injuries, but season on the line. You're spot on. For the Crows, I want to see a bit more. Miller back, I think, is huge. He's so important. Phil Thorpe back. I'm always wary of a player when they've been really crook. I don't expect much from him, Rookie. So if you're playing him in your fantasy side or your Supercoach side, don't put him in for much because he'll feel terrible. You know what it's like when I think he'll be a bit rusty. I expect the Crows to win. They've got to win. I want them to do it by 5 or 6 goals and do it with a bit of style, I hope, on Saturday night.
Early game on Saturday is Port Adelaide and St Kilda. Your thoughts there?
50-50, I reckon. Look, if it was played here, Hooky, I'd go with Port. Because it's there, I'm just leaning towards the Saints. I know I've been leaning towards this, and Port fans will hate me, but I don't think it's a shocking result if they lose. I've loved what I've seen the last 2 weeks. They've got the second best defence in the league. I think they've got a real platform to build from. And if they didn't win another game this season, come back to this, Hooky, if I bag them. But I think they've still got a great platform to deal with. So finishing above the bottom 5, I think, is probably not the best result from Port. So I don't think it's a shocking result if they lose. But if they win, you know what? Top 10's achievable. Amazing.
They played North Melbourne last weekend, Tom, and 71 free kicks were dished out over the course of the game. You called the match, and I know you've had some opinion on it, but just very quickly share with us your thoughts on how all of that played out, because it was completely against the grain of how we expect Australian football to be adjudicated.
And I love the game, and I love the umpires. I couldn't do it in a million years. It's so hard. There's so much grey area, and I don't think they're helped by all of that grey area. But, Hooky, I don't think people go to the footy to see the umpires blow the whistle. And when you've got players, commentators, and you know what it's like. So all the commentary boxes sit up next to each other at Adelaide over on the western side. And you go to the loo, you grab a quick pasty at halftime. I probably grab more than my fair share. And every co-commentator, expert, what's going on with the umpiring, and when that happens and you've got everyone sort of going, where's this, and even players like Jordan Sweet and the opposing ruckman Tristan Sherry, when they're looking at each other not knowing in ruck contest, Michael, you know there's an issue. There was a game between Brisbane and Geelong, 25 frees. I would rather see that erring on the side of swallow the whistle than 71. And I think, Hooky, and I might be wrong, if they're there, pay them, and they're 2 lower ranked sides, less skilled sides. If they're there, pay them. But if you've got it one way, let it go.
I will get into this further down the track. All I'll say right now is that wasn't an accident. There was obviously an instruction from someone. We've got to be paying more free kicks, and it manifested itself in 71, which is kind of outrageous. That'll be something that we'll keep an eye on in coming weeks. Tommy, to wrap it up, can I just give you Hooky's local sport minute?
Yes, I love this. This is the best part of the show.
We talked already about the Adelaide Thunderbirds and how they won 3 titles in 4 years. And I want to just identify Georgie Horgis and Taylor Williams, 2 country South Australians who were part of all 3 titles in the 4 years. And I reckon that wasn't just a reward for dedication and hard work, but it was the universe paying them back for premierships lost. So let me tell you about Taylor Williams. She was playing for Hummocks Watchman Eagles in the Adelaide Plains League. Georgie Horgis was playing for Pandana in the Kangaroo Island League. Taylor Williams left home as a 17-year-old in 2018 to have a crack at the game in the city. And 2018, 2019, no tournament in 2020 for COVID, missed in 2021, but in 2022. So 18, 19 and 22, would you believe, 3 and 4 years, Hummocks Watchman Eagles won the premiership. And you're probably thinking, oh, don't tell me Pandana did that as well. Well, Georgie Hawkins all just signed with the T-Birds in 2020, and Pandana didn't win 3 and 4 years. They won 3 and 3 years, 2020, 2021 and 2022. So both of these kids left their hometowns, and that year they began a run of 3 premierships, just like what the Adelaide Thunderbirds have done. And I'm just pleased to say that both of them now can celebrate together as having conspired to generate a dynasty that they've left behind in their little hometowns to be able to create one at the National League for the Adelaide team. So
it's a beautiful note to finish on, Hooky. Well done, because we've talked about the international flavour, and there is in the Thunderbirds, but we do still have some local talent and damn good talent that help sort of guide that ship to a 3rd premiership in 4 seasons. So perfect way to end it. It was a great result. I mean, yeah, so proud of the T-Birds.
It's my favourite 20 minutes of the week, garnering all of your expertise and insight. We will do it all again next week, my man.
You're a good man. See you next week.